Hi, I'm Serith. Those who know me know that I'm very interested in ritual. I'm working on a book right now on ritual with the working title of Ritual Theory, Ritual Performance. Originally, I expected it to take a year or two, and based mainly on my own experience with ritual. I thought I'd do some research on to see what was being done by scholars as well, and discovered it was a huge field with a whole lot of work being done in it. So I've added several years to my work. Today I'm going to talk about some of these books on ritual theory. I actually have quite a few, and I'll be doing other videos on them as I read more. I'll also have a video on books that are about that contain rituals themselves rather than our ritual theory. When I make that and post it, I'll include the link down in the description. Today I'm just going to be talking about some of the more important ones that I've read to show you exactly what's out there. The titles and authors will be listed in the discussion. The first one I want to talk about is Beginnings in Ritual Studies by Ronald Grimes. Any book by Ronald Grimes is a good book on ritual. He founded the Journal of Ritual Studies and has written quite a few books and edited a very good one, which I will get to in a future video. Beginnings in Ritual Studies is made up of a number of essays on particular topics. One is a very good one on, it's called Mapping the Field of Ritual. It's advice to anthropologists who are out in the field and are making descriptions of ritual. Part of it includes questions that an anthropologist like this might want to make sure they answer, like, where does the ritual enactment occur? Indoors, outdoors, in a randomly chosen place, in a special place? If the place is a natural one, is it high or low, secluded or accessible? If it was discovered, how is it found or chosen, and so on. He doesn't really suggest this as a checklist for people writing rituals, but I think make a fantastic one to make sure that you include important things. There are a number of other interesting things in the ritual. This book, there are also some parts that I didn't find very useful at all. A section on theater and ritual. Theater and ritual are very closely related, but a lot of what he wrote in there I didn't really find very useful. However, this is the book I recommend as a starting book if you're interested in ritual theory. There are two books here by Katherine Bell, Ritual Theory, Ritual Practice, and Ritual Perspectives and Dimensions. They're both fairly good. The one you find quoted the most in academic material is this one, Ritual Theory, Ritual Practice. I actually don't recommend it as the first one you're going to be reading, though. This other one here, Ritual Perspectives and Dimensions, is a lot easier to read. I found it absolutely fascinating, read very quickly through it, and I think that you'll not have much troubles with it. Ritual Theory, Ritual Practice literally put me to sleep a few times when she was discussing the various theories of ritual that various scholars throughout the years have come up with. That section's a little bit tedious. It does pick up after that, though. So after you've read Beginnings in Ritual Studies and the other book by Katherine Bell, this would be a good book to read through. She's quoted very often in other books on ritual, very highly thought of. Another one that's very highly thought of, it's Roy Rappaport, Ritual and Religion in the Making of Humanity. This is an incredibly in-depth book. He talks a lot about a particular tribe in New Guinea that he worked with and bases a lot of his material on that tribe. That's an occupational hazard of anthropologists. They tend to base their theories on their particular tribe, the one that they studied and lived with. But he goes beyond that and does a very good job of coming up with theories on ritual. He actually came very close to some of my own theories. For a moment I thought he was going to actually repeat what I think, and I was going to think, oh great, someone else has already thought of it. But he talks a lot about performative speech, which I'm going to be talking about later, which I think is crucial in ritual. It's a little bit long, takes a while to read, it's a little complex, but incredibly highly recommended. The next book is called The Ritual Process, Structure and Anti-Structure by Victor Turner. Victor Turner is one of the most important of the modern ritual theorists. He wanted to get away from the general structural descriptions of rituals and get more into the experience of rituals. He's most famous for his theory of communitas, which is a feeling of oneness of a culture, of the people celebrating ritual at a certain point during the ritual, the liminal period in the ritual. His work was mostly done among the Ndembu tribe, and again he uses them as a pretty good example. Gives a lot of details of their ritual and analyzes their symbolic structure. Good read, easy read, and he's one of the most important people in modern ritual studies. All right, the next ones are going to be more on particular parts of rituals, or more specific parts. The first one is Purity and Danger by Mary Douglas. As you can tell from the title, well, its subtitle is An Analysis of the Concepts of Pollution and Taboo. So she's dealing with what makes people pure, what makes people impure, and what different cultures think is pure and impure, what kind of culture thinks impurity is important or taboo is important. She talks a lot about the kosher rules in the Old Testament, for instance. So very good book if you're interested in purity, which I think you should be, because it's a good thing for rituals to begin with purification. Mircea Eliade, The Sacred and the Profane, subtitle, The Nature of Religion, the Significance of Religious Myth, Symbolism, and Ritual Within Life and Culture. It concentrates mainly on ritual space and ritual time. So it's a very useful book for people who are interested in creating ritual space or ritual time. Some of his theories have been argued against. One of his major theories is that ritual recreates what was done, what he calls in illo temporis, in that time. The dream time is, in Australian terms, the golden age. And I think that's a little bit overstated. It's true in a number of cases, but not true in others. However, it's an easy read, it's well thought of, and even the people who disagree with it have had to deal with it. Mircea Eliade is one of my favorite writers, in fact. This book you may have heard of, The Rites of Passage by Arnold van Gennep. He actually invented the term rites of passage. Nowadays, rites of passage is used for initiation rituals, things like weddings, funerals, birth rituals, and so on. He actually used it to include calendar rituals and a few other things, something in which someone passes through a state. His basic theory was that rites of passage are made of an introductory part, a liminal period, and then a reintroduction to normal life. His theory has been criticized, particularly in regards to women's or girls' initiation rituals, coming of age rituals, but it's still a very important idea, and it's very useful in writing your own rituals. This book I find absolutely fascinating. The Rights of Rulers, Ritual and Industrial Society, the Soviet Case by Crystal Lane. During the Soviet era, it was considered that ritual was important, but since they had rejected religion and amongst the ancient traditions, they had to write their own rituals. There were actually people in the Soviet Union whose job was to write rituals and to have people perform them and then to critique them and to rewrite them and so on. I think it's a fantastic job. It's basically my dream job, right up there with being an Imagineer at Disney World. She includes a lot of description of rituals, but also it's interesting to see how rituals work in a secular society and what makes ritual. Is it connected necessarily with the sacred? She deals, for instance, with May Day rituals, weddings, a variety of other things. There's a fascinating description of a coming of age ritual in an industrial city. I found it very fascinating. The next 4 books aren't actually specifically about ritual, but they're things that a ritualist would find useful to know. The first one is called Semiotics, an introductory anthology edited by Robert E. Innes. Semiotics is a study of signs and symbols, and since ritual is made of symbols, it's very good to know how symbols work. This is a collection of articles and selections from books by various semioticians through the years, starting with Ferdinand Ceisiwr, who invented the field. It's an overlap between linguistics and philosophy. It can be very difficult and has a lot of its own technical terms, but it's definitely worth knowing about. There will also be a link in the description to an online book on the introduction to semiotics that I really think is very good. Towards the end, it gets more into political matters, but the more early stuff is very important. This book, I love this book, How to Do Things with Words by J.L. Austin. It's about performative speech. Performative speech is speech that does things rather than describes things. If I say the ball is red, I'm describing a particular situation. Performative speech is things like, I now pronounce you husband and wife, or I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Those actually do things. When you say I now pronounce you husband and wife, you've actually made the two people husband and wife by the act of speaking that phrase. You haven't described anything. You've created a situation. He was the first scholar to identify the idea of performative speech. It's a fairly good read, fairly easy read. He does invent a lot of technical terms, like illocutionary, a few other ones. What I did was write them in the back, make my own little glossary. I recommend doing that. And then if you run across the term again, you forget what it meant, you can just check the glossary. I really think that performative speech is central to ritual, and that is what I'll be developing my book on it. Homo Ludens, a study of the play element in culture. This book, it's about play, about Homo Ludens, the playing man. It describes how people play, what play is. Now the importance of this is that ritual is very much like play. In play, something matters in the play that doesn't necessarily matter outside. That the thing in the play is not the same thing as the play outside. When a little kid plays with a toy truck, that's a real truck to the child, even though looking at it from the outside, it's just a toy truck. Well, if you look at more adult things, in a sports thing, if you move that football over that line, you get points, and that will determine who wins the game. And the game might mean something, but really when it comes right down to it, moving a ball over a line is meaningless. It only has meaning because you've decided in the course of the play that it is meaningful. Ritual and play are very similar. A sword in a ritual is really, from the outside, just a sword, whereas in the ritual itself, it might be a tool of fire that can actually do things. So, recommended. Finally, this is another book that, it's another anthology. It's called Actor Training, edited by Alison Hodge. Play is very much like drama. Some people think that rituals actually came from drama. I'm sorry, I meant rituals are like drama. So learning how to do acting is a very useful skill to have if you're going to be performing rituals. I'm a big fan of Stanislavski. I'll be talking about him in future installments of this series. But this one includes a lot of different theorists, and most of whom had their own acting troupes, and it explains how they trained their actors and how the actors performed. So actor training is really a very good thing for a ritualist to have. It gives you presence, it gives you meaning. The thing I got most from this book is the importance of the physical, particularly of motions and gestures. That's, when I write my rituals, I tend to do a lot of head work, but this was emphasized more body work, and that's something I need to take into account in my future rituals. And there will be more in this series as I read more books on ritual theory, and there also will be a video that I hope soon on books that are primary sources, books that include rituals rather than theorizing about rituals. I'm going to try to cover a wide variety of cultures in those rituals, and those would be ones that would help inspire you to come up with your own theories of rituals. I hope that they're not ones that you necessarily steal ideas from, because some of them are very culturally specific, but they should at least give you some ideas. So these are books that I think are very important for ritual theorists, and everybody who writes a ritual is by default a ritual theorist, even if they don't know it. And anyone who performs a ritual is acting on ritual theory, again, even if they don't know it. So if you want to write ritual and if you want to perform ritual, it's a good idea to study ritual theory so you know better what you can do, and you can write better ritual and perform rituals better. So I'll see you in some other videos, and I hope you enjoyed this and took something away from it. Thank you.